Thank you for joining us. I'm Richard Perrett, and our show today will focus on education, which does represent one of the best hopes for a brighter future for all humankind. Our guests today are John Kuglin, the outstanding instructional technology consultant, and later in the show we'll have Dr. Chris Deedy of the Harvard School of Education to discuss distance learning and new educational technologies. Both of these interviews will be conducted by Cindy Burfield at the Florida Educational Technology Conference at the Rosen Center Hotel in Orlando, Florida, following these messages.
With us now is John Kuglin. John has a vast amount of experience in many areas, and I'd like to introduce you to him.
Thank you. This is my 40th year in education, started back in 1971, prior to the computer age, so it's really been an unbelievable ride for me to see all the various kinds of technology grow and evolve, and with a varied background, with a mixture of higher education, coming out of the University of Montana, retiring as an associate dean, and also then coupling up with the industry in Hollywood and working on films and so forth. And with my classroom background in education, it's really a unique blend that I bring to the education community as we explore the new frontiers that are in front of us as far as technology and learning is concerned.
Absolutely. How would you define distance education, and how has it evolved, or will it evolve in the near future?
Well, distance education is really a broad term used to describe many forms of learning that take place. True forms of distance education, of course, would be students at another location with a teacher at one location themselves, and it could be multiple students, so they're working over the internet or over some other platform where they're able to communicate, video networks and so forth. So that's one true form of distance education, and that will continue to grow. But what's a bigger trend is what they call blended learning. Blended learning is taking place in a traditional classroom part of the time, and then it's taking place the other part of the time over the internet and so forth. So sometimes the students are at school, they're working and so forth. Other times they're coming in via the internet, and so that's kind of maybe a 50-50 mix or some percentage of mix. And then of course the other more traditional learning is 100% classroom based. So really it depends upon. There are teachers out there earning master's degrees now through fully online programs, fully online accredited programs. That's really permeated down into the K-12 schools, where K-12 students, in some respects, can get their high school diploma entirely online. Wow. But most of the public school systems are opting for this blended learning approach, as well as the universities. And so it's really a mixture, but it continues to change with the different kinds of evolutions with technology usage and appliances, those kinds of things.
John, tell us about your work as a technology consultant.
My work as a technology consultant continues to grow in its role, but one of the biggest aspects, and you don't hear this from a technology consultant very often, but it's more about learning than technology. It's really about student achievement. So as a technologist and as an educator, I'm always stressing the fact that it's technology second, it's learning first. And so the role is really understanding how technology, because it's kind of a cause and effect relationship. Because Apple released the iPad, and because there are so many apps now available for the iPad, the effect is now we have a new mobile platform for the classroom that many teachers are asking, well, how do I use this effectively to impact instruction? Take the last Consumer Electronics Show this past January in Las Vegas. Because Apple released the iPad and because the industry saw how well the iPad did, 53 devices, similar devices, were released.
Wow.
at the Consumer Electronics Show. So there's a combination of understanding the new technologies that are out there, new ways of delivering. We have a national program on, much like Eisenhower did when he built the interstate highway system, much like the Lincoln administration did when he built the transcontinental railroad. Well, there's a push on now to continue to connect our country ubiquitously with wireless content. So you've got wireless content, you've got new mobile devices, and then you've got something called cloud computing. And so I put all of that together as a technology consultant, and I give solutions to school districts that say, here's how you can deploy this. And what's working, at least right now in my favor, is that you actually can do more on less money if you know how to put all these new tools together and assemble them. And that's what schools are going to have to do, because they're not going to get any more money. They're going to have to work smarter.
And how does teacher professional development fit into all this?
Well, the key to professional development, I'll go back in time because I can do that with my age. When computers first started to come out, Apple IIes in the schools, there were actually policies and procedures that said the teachers were not to use the computers, they would immediately go to the students for use. Well, they sat there as doorstops and so forth because if the teacher didn't feel comfortable with it and the teacher wasn't going to use it, the students certainly weren't going to use that. So we've come a long way in some respects to get computers in the hands of teachers and students. And so it grows and it continues to evolve. That professional development is a key component. In fact, a great amount of my work is done with professional development and teaching teachers how to become 21st century teachers. We always talk about 21st century learning, but what does it mean to be a 21st century teacher? And I've been working with teachers all around the country, showing them the new applications that are online, increasing their productivity, and also working beyond their school district. Now, their school district is going to provide a cadre of technology tools, which I put in the middle. But students are out here. And in order to reach them, teachers have to work differently. So I'm showing them how to use the cloud, how to use technologies to reach all of those students. When schools are going to become more and more limited on what they can do, teachers themselves can actually do more if they know how to work, and professional development is the key to that.
Very interesting, because it seems as though the students often are more in tune to what's available in technology than the teachers are.
That they are a different generation. I cite studies where, we think about kids today. They haven't, the students that are in high school today have never sat around home and aimlessly wound their phone cord around their hand while they're talking to somebody, because they didn't have phones, and they certainly didn't dial, the phone the way that we used to when I was younger. And they're different. In fact, some teachers are alarmed that some students today are coming out of school, they don't know how to write in cursive. But think about it. Think about their life.
They need to.
So we have to understand that students are exposed to Facebook, to Twitter. They are connected 24/7 by 365. My daughter is actually trying to figure this out. She was a news director for CBS, and now now she's hired by the company that she works for that has multiple television markets, and her title, first one in the television industry, called Director of Social Media.
Oh, wow.
So she's trying to figure out how the television industry is going to use these social media. We as education have to figure it out. In fact, on the issue recently here on the FETC, the journal, it cites the importance of the social classroom.
Yes.
So I'm also showing teachers and talking to administrators about policies, because we still have policies in schools out there. I can show you a picture taken from a school recently that says absolutely no electronic devices in this building during 8:30 and 3:30.
Sure, they take them away.
They take them away, and smart school districts are beginning to follow the path of BYOT. That's bring your own technology. So truly kids are more exposed. It's not a threat to teachers. They need to capitalize on that. We all work towards greater student achievement.
You've addressed IT conferences all over the world, including Dubai. What are your thoughts on IT and high tech in Israel?
Well, IT internationally, we have to understand as Americans that other cultures and societies are working hard and they're catching up, and that we live, the term is thrown out, globalization all the time. And so the children that are in our schools are going to compete against the Chinese, they're going to compete against other cultures in jobs in the future. And America's strength has always been innovation. So when I say student achievement in schools, I'm also meaning innovation. Because we have to learn how to innovate, because we will not, and nor do we want to, compete with other cultures and societies on hourly per pay, lower end jobs, although that segment's important to our country. But for us to be innovative and to maintain our leadership, we have to have a space program, one, that's funded, and still generating that kind of Sputnik moment that was referred to recently. And that kind of comes out of the scientific community, such as NASA. That's what was built in the workforce so much in the 60s.
Right.
So competition, not only from the Arabs, because I was over in Dubai, and I was invited by the Crown Prince to be there to talk to his educators, and they were very tuned in to what we were doing. But Israel, all of them, it's changing the world, really, technologies, because look what the impact Twitter is having in Iran recently with what was going on there, with recently in Egypt. I think it has a way of bringing populations, actually, it may sound funny, closer together when the common person can communicate with other common people and find out, well, they're not so bad. Why does our government necessarily pit us against each other sometimes?
Interesting.
So I think it holds promise there to actually somewhat unite our world, but what we're seeing now is the initial stages of maybe some dictators and other things that are losing power. Chinese, for instance, are very, very concerned about the free flow of information, and they're concerned that they may see something like in Egypt in their country. I know they were putting kind of a hold on Twitter and Facebook and those kinds of things, but the cat's out of the bag. It's here. And I don't think that international lines are going to be as strong as they were before, regardless of political belief or societal beliefs and so forth.
With regard to the skill set that we're now expecting our students to have in order to survive and in order for us to compete economically in this global society, how have those skills changed, and how are we preparing the students with those skills?
Well, that's an interesting question to ask, because in order to answer that, let's go back in time. When our country was first born, our educational system was really that of a journeyman kind of apprentice model. You wanted to learn how to do something, you as an apprentice worked for a journeyman, and maybe you maybe you were an iron baker or did something that way. Then it evolved as we evolved as a country, and Henry Ford started the assembly line and so forth. We went to the assembly line as far as school is concerned. Let's take the children in, let's get them through 12 years, and let's kick them out the other end. Well, that model, as you know, is going away, but it's not leaving K-12 as easy as we might like it to leave. So what we're moving into now is the more digital age of an educational system that's anytime, anywhere, any place. In that students have tremendous access to information. They're not coming to school just to gain the knowledge anymore, but they're coming to school to get other value-added pieces. And thus you've heard a movement in the schools called 21st century learning. Yeah. And 21st century learning focuses on new skills in problem solving, collaboration, and other kinds of things that the new technologies complement. In fact, the new technologies enable the new learning to take place. And so I work with teachers on organizing themselves with these new systems, I call them, so that we can break away from the K-12 system in this assembly line approach and get more to a truly customizable individual learning plan for children that's now possible through some new innovations within the last 12 months that are possible because of large databases becoming searchable by teachers, customizable, and something called custom curriculum publishing. Wow. Where we can now really go into this huge data bank on an individual child's needs and put together an individual plan for them. Nice. When teachers see that, they're saying for the first time, well, maybe I'll give up my textbook if I can do this. Sure. But you got to understand, that textbook has been a big pull for teachers for a long time. Yes.
And assessments. We're so focused on teaching to the test and making sure those kids can pass the test. Does that test add value to society as a whole?
Really, the tests, to be truthful with you, are some type of way of quantifying what children learn. But the reality of it is the kinds of things the test tests are not the kinds of skills that are going to make us innovative as a nation. In many respects, it's the process that's more important than the product at the end. Meaning that if a child comes in and uses multimodalities to construct something at the end, it's different than it used to be. We used to look at, well, that's a good report, I'll give you an A. Right. It's more important now to say, how did you build that to this point? Were you able to solve problems along the way? Were you able to collaborate with other people? Were you able to build that much like we work in the corporate or business side? Sure. And those skills are just as important as the end product. So assessment needs to also be addressed and also be fine-tuned for this new learning environment.
Yes, I agree. John, it was a pleasure to have you, and your thoughts are very innovative and inspiring, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, and best of luck to you.
Excellent. Thank you.